Yo, Tube, what's good? Making this video to update all of you on how mages are going to look going into the new patch. As you can see down here, it is the 1st of November, bright and early. And tomorrow, November 2nd, the new patch is coming out, which is going to obviously entail all these changes that I'm going to go over. I'm going to primarily go over the mage changes and what's going to go on in terms of mage. So yeah, let's get into it. So first and foremost, the big one that everyone's freaking out about, Aeghis. What legendary are we going to be running? Triune Ward is getting nerfed. So we are going to be running Triune still because Triune provides not only more shields, right? In terms of more survivability, not so much now anymore, where it's only going to be 35 times 3 basically is 105, I think. Yeah, 105. So we're really only going to be getting 5% more barriers. So because of this, we are going to obviously still be running Triune because it provides, obviously the barriers themselves are very good. Prismatic barrier is very good into other mages, gives you purge protection, allows you to not be DB sheep because Pris barrier has that magic debuff, crowd control reduced by 25% thing. And then Frost Barrier, obviously very, very good for slowing and snaring. And Blazing Barrier is pretty good too, just for the absorb, really. So you're still going to run that into a lot of things with Purge and stuff that you need to, obviously just need more Purge protection. But in matches where, let's say, there is no Purge relevant, right? Then is 5% absorb really going to provide that much value? Probably not. So if there's not any purges, or maybe just one purge, you can run disciplinary command. So next patch, it's not going to just be Triune every game. Triune. It's going to be, a mix-up. Some games disciplinary, some games Triune. So I do recommend getting on that. I have a video, which I will leave in the description, explaining disciplinary, how to use it, when to use it, all that kind of thing. So check that out. The next change that's kind of big for mage, these don't really matter. This helps Arcane. They can use their mana gem in the arena now, not too big. And then this I didn't even know was a bug. So, okay, thanks for fixing that, I suppose. The next one is not fire related, but it's actually frost related. So as you can see here, frost is getting pretty much a 10% buff across the board. Frostbolt was already hitting, you could already hit like, 12, 13k pretty consistently. So this will be a nice change for Frost. This obviously helps them still. And then Icicles are really insignificant in terms of DPS. So I wouldn't be surprised if this change doesn't really change too much. I don't know why they keep buffing Frost damage. The damage is low, but it's not really the damage aspect of Frost. It's really having to cast to get that damage off. Frost was good when all the damage was tied to Ice Lance, which was an instant cast ability. Frost was never good when its main damage was tied to Frostbolt, except obviously for the really, really old expansions. But Mop, Frost was BIS because all the damage was instant, all came from Ice Lance. Same thing with WoD. Obviously with Frostbolt a little bit more in WoD, but primarily the damage was Ice Nova and Ice Lance. So and Comet Storm, stuff like that. All instant cast abilities. So the fact that Frost has to cast primarily all of its damage right now is why I don't think this change is gonna really do much. Maybe if Frost got like Deep Freeze back, then it could possibly compete with Fire. But until that happens, as long as Fire has DB and DB doesn't get nerfed, I really can't see Fire not being meta, even with the Necro Lord Covenant there is this conduit that's getting buffed. It's the one that makes your Lichborn last longer. So this is getting buffed by 100%. I still don't see mages going Necrolord. Night Fae, Shifting Power, Soothing Voice, Seed, all these things are super underrated. The Waking Dreams, defensive, auto defensive. So I can't really see like mages switching to Necrolord either. So that's another buff. I don't really have it up here, but that's another buff that I don't see being huge. There is something else that does affect mage, not like directly, but it's a comp that you play with, and that is Holy. Right now, when we play RMP, I would say the popular choice is Disc. A lot of RMPs are Disc right now. This does have a fairly high chance of mixing that up. The only reason that you would play with Disc is because the healing is far greater, more consistent. Holy is obviously really good offensively and defensively because you have Fade, Guardian on a low CD, obviously Chastise, Fear to be able to just cross the target instantly. But the healing was always really sketchy. It always kind of felt like if you just ran out of healing, you just lost. So hopefully this means that casting in maybe Serenity won't be like the... Maybe Holy won't just be so Serenity based. Maybe the actual healing from casting will, you know, be better, sort of like Disc. So I could see a lot of RMPs going Holy next patch. I think that's something that should not be looked over. So I'm going to go over kind of like some other changes just so you guys are aware going into the new patch. Let's say you haven't read this, or maybe you did read it and, you know, were slightly confused. Things that are going to affect mages and the comps that we play and the comps that we struggle into. I think next patch, this is my prediction at least, RMP is getting an overall buff. Obviously the Holy buff is really nice. There hasn't really been any other changes to fire in terms of a buff, but I think a lot of other stuff is getting nerfed, which is going to help mages kind of be better in the meta. One of the changes being RMP really struggled into triple necro cleaves and just stuff where you had to do flesh goes, essentially starting one go behind because you had to do a go to get a target's fleshcraft off, right? Or maybe you had to sit out and delay your first go while you broke a fleshcraft or something. That's going to be slightly less now because you can see Fleshcraft now absorbs up to 30% instead of 40%. So small nerf, but still worth noting. One of the main comps that RMP actually struggles into is Jungle Cleave, and Jungle is getting a little bit of a nerf. So this ability here where, you know, when you would go the Hunter and, you know, you would be going, or like you would cross CC the Priest and then go on the Hunter, if the Pharaoh would just start casting Regrowth, that would obviously be really, really bad. These heals now have a way less chance to crit, meaning that the heals are going to be way weaker usually. So that's going to be a pretty substantial buff since you can't really cross a Feral too easily, since you can't just poly him, but most of the time you fear him anyways. So this change might not be that big of a deal. But there is a change I would like to talk about that I can't really find in the patch notes, but it has something to do with Bestial Wrath. Bestial Wrath actually used to work like, and it was a bug, but it used to work like, let's say you stunned the pet, right? That's a very common way to cross the pet so that you could bust, right? Well, what a smart hunter would do would be to not use Bestial Wrath for offense. And what they would use is they would wait for you to do your go. They would wait for you to cross their pet with either like DB Ring or Stun or Fear, and they could actually use Bestial Wrath to get their pets out of CC, and then they would be able to use Roar of Sacrifice to stop your combust. This shouldn't work like that on stuff that isn't a fear or horror effect. So stunning, you shouldn't be able to get your pets out of stuns or DBs. So they actually are fixing that in this next patch. So you're going to be able to reliably cross pets with stuns and DBs, which is going to be like a huge increase and help to RMP. You're going to actually be able to consistently play out around Roar of Sacrifice, which is really, good to hear. So that is kind of like what is changing going into fighting jungle, which is going to be really cool. There is another thing, a lot of RDruids in the meta right now. There is this change, I'm trying to find it here. So this is very good. Swiftmen basically used to be like a second NS, a second nature swiftness. It would instantly just top them. It was a really, really large heal. This is going to affect our druid's consistent throughput. It's going to be a little bit less, which is obviously good considering the amount of our druids that there are. This, along with the Fleshcraft change, is going to be really, really good going into a lot of the druid comps. There is one talent that I would like to note that is a little strange to me, and it's this one here. So as you can see this, I would like you to read this and interpret this on your own. Now protects the druid from all harm while tranquility is channeled. So I actually went on the PTR and tested it. I actually went on the PTR and tested this, and flat out, this is bubble. You can't kick it, you can't damage them. It's a bubble that heals you. So our druids basically have bubble now, which is a bit concerning to me. It kind of seems like that change is really out of left field. I don't really understand the reasoning behind it. I don't think anyone was really asking for our druids to have a bubble, but we'll have to see how that plays out. Monks are getting nerfed. I don't have it pulled up here, but Bone Dust is getting a 33% nerf. And then also the proc is going to be doing 50% less. We'll have to see if that's actually enough. I feel like the damage was really, really high. So we'll have to see if that's enough, like I said. There are some changes to Warlocks that I would like to note because we'll probably see a lot of them in the coming patches. The biggest one being this one here, Decimating Bolt. They used to be able to spell steal a buff on a Warlock. They would cast Decimating Bolt and they would get a 3-stack buff, which you could steal. And it would steal all the buffs. It wouldn't steal them individually. It would steal the entire thing, which basically would increase their Death Bolt damage, or Shadow Bolt, or sorry, Demon Bolt, not Death Bolt. And this was what Warlocks were doing to essentially burst. Well, that can't be purged anymore. So it's going to be guaranteed damage. It's going to look like LA Shaman damage where they just, Stormkeeper and one-shot you with Sky Fury and all that. It's going to be similar to that. Also, all the specs are getting their versions of Combust not purgeable anymore. So you can't spell steal Dark Soul. So I think we're going to be starting to see a lot more Warlocks in the meta. Unfortunately, from a mage perspective, I don't really like fighting Warlocks, but usually just because they're paired with Shamans, and Lock Sham has always been kind of like awkward for a mage to fight. But let's see, I think that actually is pretty much all the changes. I know there was like the AoE cap change that doesn't really do a whole lot like these. Not in PvP anyways. Oh yeah, there's the Necro conduit I was telling you about. I don't really think any of the AoE cap thing is really PvP related. No real changes to Rogue. This got buffed. I'm not sure if that's actually going to warrant Rogues going back Night Fae. Possibly. I actually didn't even see this till right now. Might test that on the PTR later. Let's see. I think that's really all I had. That's really all I wanted to cover. Yeah, so I think that's really it. I hope you guys learned something from the video, and peace out.